a game changer, an event, idea, or procedure that affects a significant shift in the current manner of doing or thinking about something. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Game Changer Podcast. Join me and all of my friends as we look over different topics, ideas, look over different events, popular subjects, not so much popular subjects, even random ideas that you probably wouldn't even think about. As we dive into these things, give our perspectives as well as give our opinions about these perspectives, we give you guys something a little bit more to think about. Why? Because we believe in changing the game. Why? Simple. Because we can. Welcome to the Game Changer Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Strap yourselves in. It's going to be a wild and crazy ride. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first edition of the Wrestle Addict Radio edition of the Game Changer Podcast, not the Game Changer Wrestling Podcast, because honestly, there's a better way of doing this, you guys. And plus, I'm still waiting for royalties from people who have misused the name of Game Changer, including all the 77 plus podcasts that claim to be a game-changing podcast, but they're not like us. I am indeed NateFNGreat. I'm being joined here by a wonderful co-host. He is indeed the master of Fretz. He is the master of Fretzlemania. He is indeed the one, the only Mr. Legend himself, Mr. Fretz. How are you doing, good sir?
It is me, the American National Treasure from Canada and Wrestle Addict Radio's resident historian. I am fantastic, Nate. It's great to be here on Wrestle Addict Radio. Mick Foley cheat pop here. Wait for the crowd.
Whoa.
And thank you. Big shout out to everyone involved in Wrestle Addict Radio for inviting me on here. It's an honor. It's still can't believe it. I'm still in denial in a way, but it's awesome to be here.
It is really awesome that we get the chance to do this for you guys. Hopefully you enjoy this show. Of course, check out not only us at the Game Changer Podcast, but we also have our great friends over on Wrestle Addict Radio, the Kings of the Rings Podcast, the Nacho Mama Soap Operas Podcast, the Fourth Wall Wrestling WrestleCast, as well as the Gift of Podcast. For all of these shows, listen in, man. So, we obviously came into this show, there was a part of me that thought, we could talk about, wrestling throughout the week, but honestly, let's face it, we had Saudi Arabia this past Friday, and now they're just kind of going into like a reboot deal, so that was kind of what this week was all about. The only funny thing that probably came from this entire week was, once again, from the ugliest championship in the world, that being the 24/7 title, featuring a locked elevator and a locked box. A lot of locked-in stuff here. It's like TNA Lockdown in WWE this week. It's really weird.
I was about to say lockdown, like reference lockdown exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth, man.
It literally is just really weird how the ugliest championship, like we said, one that I sadly will say looks like it came out of Green Bay, Wisconsin, literally is one of probably the most over titles on the entire roster. It's really sad to see that, but it's really good that we at least get some entertainment with WWE. I mean, it's been a while since we've had some good, wholesome family entertainment. I think I use the term family loosely, but it is what it is. So we thought that instead of just doing, the same old, hey, talk about what happened this week in wrestling, blah, 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 we just wanted to just have fun with this show. Literally, that is what the Game Changer is all about. It's about having fun and talking about wrestling and talking about pop culture deals, just having fun with it. And honestly, you guys, there's no better week to be talking about this kind of stuff than this week, because we actually just got done healing off 2 big events. Mr. Fretz, who was actually at a convention for up in Canada, and I was actually at a wrestling show this past Saturday. Definitely check out the review I had for that show. It was awesome, to say the least. But let's actually go right into, your convention. Obviously, you showed a lot of pictures and you got to meet a lot of great people. But for those that don't know what we're talking about, what did you all do this past week, Mr. Fretz?
Well, this past weekend, last Friday and Saturday, I was in Niagara Falls at Niagara Falls Comic Con. Now, it's your typical run-of-the-mill Comic Con. There was a lot of celebrity guests, and among those I met were Jerry Mathers, a.k.a. The Beaver, the Beaver, probably a show that all of your parents and grandparents would have watched, and for me, it used to be on every day at 12 o'clock before the Flintstones. So lunchtime at the Fretz household was Leave It to Beaver and the Flintstones. And it was also a great, it was great company on sick days from school, PA days, and days when I didn't want to leave the house. So he's like 72 now, so he was looking a little bit more like Ward Cleaver. Very kind, very gentle man. And then I walked past this table, and it said the Nasty Boys. Like, these guys weren't advertised. Like, okay. I'm looking at this, it's like, hey, are they here? It's like, no, Knobs is just down the hall there. So, down walks Knobs, and then he makes a snide remark about my NWO shirt. Like, okay, I'm gonna go meet him. But Knobs was super nice, and we were just I was talking to him about, I mixed up him and the Legion of Doom and the Road Warriors because they beat the Hart Foundation for the titles, which I was pissed about when I was a kid, but then the LOD beat them, and I mixed that up because, when you're a mark and when you're meeting someone you watched on TV since you were 8 years old, I'm trying to think of who else. I didn't meet anyone else that day because Christopher Lloyd was very, very late and didn't show up until the convention almost closed. But instead, I went home and watched the Toronto Raptors take a series lead against Golden State. Tonight they can take the title. Fingers crossed. Be the North. And, the next day I met Sergeant Slaughter, who put me in the Cobra Clutch, and I did not tap out. Oh, boy, there was another... Christopher Lloyd, obviously, and I think...
You son of a bitch.
That was it. What?
I said, you SOB. That's the one picture I was really steaming at. Like, you got to meet Doc Brown and touch the DeLorean.
I just realized I had one more, and this is one that would make 10-year-old me go nuts. I met Road Warrior Animal and wore the spikes. I was just grinning from ear to ear. Like, I sent all these pictures to our group chat, and shout out to our good friend Kate Murphy, who was just like, oh, he looks so happy. Like, well, damn right, I just met my favorite tag team wrestler ever. Like, the LOD is my favorite tag team.
He is honestly a really cool dude. I got the chance to meet him at All In last year, and he's pretty calm, pretty mellow. It was one of those things where it's like, okay, this guy seems nice, but he also still has that kind of intimidating presence about him where it's like you kind of respect him. Even without the shoulder pads, you still felt a little bit like, this guy could kind of kick my ass, so I'm just going to watch what I say sometimes.
I just talked to him about his son, because James Laurinaitis had just retired from a football career, and he's like a sportscaster or a podcaster, or kind of like a Stephen A. Smith, except not a giant dick bag like Stephen A. Smith is. And then there was Doc Brown and the DeLorean. I almost walked out with an almanac, but at that point in time, it was 4 in the afternoon, and Niagara Falls to Sauble Beach is about 4 hours. So I want to go home. I've spent enough money. I got a bunch of wrestling shirts, and I'm looking at a couple of comics I bought. Cosmic Ghost Rider, Baby Thanos Must Die, which is I haven't read it yet, but the guy says it's really, really twisted. And one of the Infinity Gauntlet series. Because Thanos. I got a big shout out to my longtime family friend Chris, who went with me. He's a longtime family friend. Like, my dad and my uncle had a butcher shop back in the day, and Chris worked for us. So the past 3 years, him and I went to Comic-Con together and had a really, really good time. And Comic-Con 2020 in Niagara Falls is celebrating 10, that's right, Dillinger, 10 years. So here's to another one. But with every there's a dark cloud in every sun. I forget how that expression goes. Need another coffee. Night shift.
With every dark cloud, there's a silver lining. There we go.
Yeah, but this is where I'm going to get into something of a almost. I'll try not to get too rant heavy because due to redacted show, I missed the chance to meet the Undertaker.
Oh, that's right. I remember this.
Here's what happened. So when I was ordering my tickets online, I looked at the Niagara Falls Comic-Con tickets. I'm like, okay, 3-day deluxe pass, 3 of those for me, Chris, and his wife. And, oh, what's this? It's like Undertaker photo tickets. I didn't see him on the announcement page at all. So it's like Saturday the 8th, Undertaker photo ticket, $180. I don't care, click. And then redacted show was announced. So I sold my ticket. I'm like, I don't care. I'll sell it for half the price. I want it out. I don't want this to go to waste and ruin someone else's chance to meet Taker. So Taker's appearance was on this past Sunday, the 9th. I was already back home here, giving my niece her birthday present. Happy birthday, Abby.
Shout out, happy birthday to Abby. You have an awesome uncle, by the way.
Indeed.
For those of you that didn't know, Fretz just did like the double thumbs up, which you know. It's what we do. We're goofs. But anyway, continue.
This is not a video podcast. Thank God, because my mug being on the internet, even more so, is just scary to me.
Oh, man. Although, honestly, dude, you did have a good chance when they did the, what was it? When Rant, shout out to Anthony for this. When you did, I think you were the last one that did that, oh gosh, what was it? Like the game show deal that he was doing.
The trivia.
The Rant trivia, we'll call it at this point. But, you know, you did pretty good. I think that you were probably like the closest one to actually get towards the end of it. And I was just kind of like, there's no chance I'll get as far as Fretz, but I'm going to give it a shot. If I can make it past 7, I'm good. But then, unfortunately, of course, we do know that Rant with Ant decided to close their doors, as well as Who Got Next. Definitely, again, thank you to everybody with Rant with Ant and Who Got Next for giving us this opportunity to just carry on the legacy that you guys have indeed laid out. And honestly, it's going to be just hard to fill those kind of shoes. But you know something? We're definitely going to do them justice by giving you guys the best entertainment that we have. And I'll definitely kind of talk about my recent experience, because I've been to a couple of comic book conventions, but this past year I went to the Chicago C2E2 event, and this was kind of I got almost like the WrestleMania of the deals. And for a lot of people that don't know, definitely check out my YouTube page. There's actually a bit of a like retelling video that I have where I do interviews as well as took pictures with a couple people there, one of which was somebody that we know from the Rant with Ant family group chat, Nicole. So shout out to Nicole for stopping by, saying hi. Honestly, it was crazy because I was in line to see. Oh gosh, was this with Elite or was this with CM Punk? I'm trying to remember. It might have been when I was going to see Elite, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, and I just remember hearing my name being called, and I'm like, am I going crazy? Am I hearing voices in my head? Are they counseling me? Do they understand? Do they talk to me? Sorry, I just went into like a Randy Orton thing deal. But then I found out, no, it was Nicole. She actually was calling for me. I'm just like, oh, shit, okay. So hi. So yeah, we got the chance to talk. She was absolutely awesome. And honestly, hope to get the chance to meet her again in Chicago later on this year, which I'll get to why a little bit later on in the show. But yeah, C2E2 was a lot of fun. Got the chance to talk to a lot of people. You see a lot of the people just dressed up. Even some of the costumes were just absolutely amazing. Getting the chance to meet, Elite and meet CM Punk, which literally was probably only the second time that I felt like my tongue was almost just swelling up in my mouth because I was so nervous. The only other time that happened was with the NWO, where I got to meet, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, X-Pac, and I was literally just like, and literally it's like a thought bubble just going, words, spit out words. But I think I fared better with CM Punk, where I did tell him that, hey, I respect everything you did. Thank you for all the years. And he's like, hey, dude, I really appreciate that. I got him to sign my CM Punk deal, which I think I actually have over here somewhere, but I'll probably show it during commercial break. He was a really cool guy. Marty Scurll was there, which ironically enough is the shirt that Mr. Fretz is wearing right now. Sorry you guys can't see that, but hey. And another person I got to meet there was Jim Cornette. And I will say this, I don't think I've gotten the chance to actually tell this story. I don't think I have. No, I don't think I've told this one with Jim Cornette. Because I did bring up a couple people here, one of them being his illegitimate son, Brian Zane. And I just... You know what I'm talking about, right?
I was like, wait, he had to son, wrestling with...
Shout out to Brian Zane, we love you.
I love Brian.
Oh my gosh. So it's just so funny, because I remember bringing him up, I said, I actually talked to him a couple times on my podcast. And Jim was like, I don't know how that little bastard does it. I don't know if he went into, my bathroom and just took a swab from the toilet or something like that. I'm just like, oh, man, Jim Cornette, I love you. Don't ever change.
Never love you.
Oh, my gosh. And then for some reason, I don't know why, oh, wait, that's right. I think I remember him signing my picture. I think he said, NateFNGreat says who. And only one other person has actually done that on my picture, and that was Mr. Anderson, or Mr. Kennedy, for those of you that are WWE marks. Yeah, I remember I said to him, yeah, Mr. Kennedy did that to me too. And Jim Cornette shakes his head, is like, that guy needs a hobby. Oh my gosh, that was just amazing. And honestly, it's going to be kind of crazy because I might actually have to tell Anderson that when I see him on Saturday. I'll be going to another wrestling show this Saturday. It's crazy, I know. There's something more than just WWE events. Holy crap. Oh, it gets worse. So Fretz is literally giving me the bird right now. Get ready to give me a double bird because he's actually going to be competing against Al Snow in the main event of the show.
Oh my God! I was just listening this morning at work. Yes, I said morning because I do the night shift, as I previously said. I was listening. Was it to the Attitude Era podcast? And Al Snow was a centerpiece of it because he was in the hardcore division, getting a railroad spike put through head, so it was affecting him, and it was scary.
You know, it's crazy. We've done a lot of the retro reviews, and we've kind of done deals where we talked about different pay-per-views in the past, and we've definitely talked quite a bit about Al Snow. We've actually said nothing but positive things about Al Snow when it comes to his wrestling back in the day.
Awesome. He was awesome. His character work, especially when he was going really crazy with head. And do you remember him having another mascot that was actually a taxidermized moose?
That one I do not remember. I remember head cheese, but not moose.
Okay, Moose was a very short-lived. It was actually, it was mid-99 during Backlash and the event that was after Backlash that should not be named because of obvious reasons. He had a deer head. Okay. Called Pierre.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yes. And Pierre was short-lived because I'm a taxidermized moose head, deer head, whatever it was. Those things fall apart if you travel with them and do stuff to them. Like my parents, they have a couple of giant lake trout that they caught, and I think somewhere in my house is there a taxidermized duck that came with my cottage when I had it. They'll fall apart.
Oh no!
And I think they used it as a weapon, which is nowhere near as disturbing as pepper steaks.
Oh jeez! Holy cow!
Yeah, I might be reviewing that someday.
Reviewing the moose, not the moose that's a part of the Game Changer podcast. Although he's a really cool guy, we're talking about a different moose. So,
and not moose from Impact either.
Oh, that's right. I almost forgot about that. Impact, Ring of Honor, whatever you want to call it, whatever they are.
Indie wrestling. Just call it indie wrestling. Hashtag Indie Dave. Shout out Dusty Dave.
Oh man. Oh, geez, that's amazing. And honestly, right now, we're reaching the point where it's like, well, we're only going to have two major companies, and all these restaurants are going to be like, no, they're just indie shows. Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, they're just the indies compared to these two companies. Probably. I mean, if things go the way they're going, it's probably going to happen. But guys, we're going to take a little quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk and have more fun with the show, because we can. You're listening to the Game Changer podcast, you guys. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey guys, this is NateFNGreat. Hey, have you ever wanted to be a champion but can't seem to really find the money and the time to get a championship belt? Well, you know who's a really good friend of mine? AJ from AJsBelts.com. These guys have a large assortment of championship belts, from classic belts to the modern day belts to championship belts you would not even believe. And guys, like I said, they work with you very well. With an awesome layaway program, there is no way that you can beat these guys' prices as well as these guys' deals, especially when you can give them a little bit of money every now and then until you can get that championship gold. Coming from a guy who's a champion and a game changer, I'm indeed NateFNGreat. I'm representing AJsBelts.com, proud friends of the Game Changer podcast. Fido wins fight. Fido wins fight. That was an awesome t-shirt. Welcome back to the Game Changer podcast, ladies and gentlemen. This is indeed hashtag Pro Talk Wrestling. Two pros talking about wrestling because we can. Again, this is part of Wrestle Addict Radio. Definitely check them out, you guys. Check them out on Twitter at Addict_radio. I believe that is what it is for that.
Addict_wrestle.
Addict_wrestle. Thank you.
You're asking King Ricky, you're asking me to spell frig off. At ADDICT_WRESTLE, Addict Wrestle. And, the rest of the shows, big shout out. We have Not Your Mama's Soap Opera with Jeff Hamachio at 52 Points of Art. We have the Kings of the Rings podcast, KOTR_podcast. Fourth Royal WrestleCast, which I just started listening to them, so Doc Bones, forgive me for not getting your Twitter handle. My God, right? I believe it's just fourth wall something at Twitter. Oh man, and I'm Gift of Podcast, Man's Chapel.
Yes.
At Gift of Podcast.
Yes, I believe that is what it is. We will definitely have this all cleared up by next week. I'm sure there's a lot of people that would be saying, no, you should have mentioned this. It's like, just check out Wrestle Addict Radios. You're definitely going to hear a lot of the shows on there, and you also hear a lot of exclusive news that we have to deliver, including the news of All Out not only having the match to crown the new AEW champion, but we just have it announced that there is a number 2 matchup that's going to be a part of that. That being the Omega, Kenny Omega, taking on Jon Moxley.
Oh, speaking of Moxley.
How ironic. It's like we planned this.
Yes. I guess now that we're a half hour or so into the show, we should talk a little bit about wrestling. So I managed to speed watch a little bit of Dominion. I didn't catch the whole show. Mm-hmm. Work. This time of day, I'm usually in bed because night crew. So we had NJPW Dominion in Osaka, and Jon Moxley opened the show against Dusty Dave. Please forgive me for getting these New Japan names wrong and butchering them. Please hate tweet me. Shota Umino versus Jon Moxley, and Death Rider Jon Moxley of course, he's the new IWGP United States Champion, defeating Juice Robinson this past week at the Best of the Super Juniors finale.
I think that was. I think that's what they were calling it.
Yeah, that had Will Ospreay in just an amazing finale match. Please forgive me for forgetting who was against. So Umino, he just got wrecked by Moxley. Moxley hit him with the Death Rider, which is kind of like a elevated version of the Dirty Deeds. So the Gangrel DDT version of the Dirty Deeds. So after the match, he just picks him up, like just kind of arm around him and just walks him to the back, just kind of taking him under his wing in a way. And then his backstage interview is just like, oh yeah, this is my young lion. I'm gonna take him under my wing here. Yeah, here, hold my belt. And he just drops to the ground, and then goes on about how he wants to be a part of the G1.
Ooh.
And there's going to be something about the G1 here momentarily. I didn't watch much of the next matches because I couldn't dedicate that much time to it. But we had Shingo Takagi versus Satoshi Kojima, which was, from what I watched, it was a great match. Last of the Dragon and Shingo have the win there. And I'm not going to cover everything on this show here because there's a couple of things I wanted to get into. But we had Jushin Thunder Liger, who is still wrestling, and I think he's kind of on his retirement tour, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe that his last matchup is indeed in January this upcoming year.
Wrestle Kingdom.
Yes.
Do we know who it is against?
I've not heard anything yet. It probably has been announced, but I have not heard his opponent named yet. Honestly, there's a lot of people I would love to see him battle, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see.
Oh yeah, he's been wrestling about as long as I've been alive. Like, I'm 35. I'm 35, and he is still going. So we had Liger and Yoshihashi versus Minoru Suzuki and Zack Sabre Jr., someone who's fastly becoming a favorite of mine in New Japan. He is absolutely outrageous, and we had Yoshihashi get a roll up here, a 6-man tag match with, I didn't see who this was against. We had Chase Owens and Taguchi and Ishimori were involved in it. It had Bullet Club, Juice Robinson, and we had the final cut to Owens. But there's one thing in here I'm going to get. Ishii and Taichi for the Never Openweight Championship. Ishii is an absolute god. Like, this man is a beast. He's the new Never Openweight Champion I think he's for the 5th time.
Jeez.
Like this. I mean, he reminds me in a way of kind of like I'm going to get so much heat for this, but kind of like a young Brock Lesnar.
Oh, really?
Like kind of like just this machine that just won't stop. He takes all the punishment, and he doles it all out. But then we had, I don't know if this was at this point in the show, but we had a surprise appearance from someone who's going to be taking part in the G1. A man known as Kenta.
That's right. Oh my gosh, I did hear about that. Oh my gosh.
Yes, the former Hideo Itami is going to be in the G1, which is, my goodness.
Which, honestly, Fretz, before we go any further, explain to the viewers what the G1 is, per se.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think I don't know. Is it a tournament? I believe it's a tournament that'll determine like a number one contender.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, from my knowledge, it is supposed to be like this major tournament where the winner of the G1 gets a title shot at Wrestle Kingdom. So it's kind of almost like their version of Royal Rumble, per se. But,
right.
You know, a lot cooler and more riveting, to say the least. I mean, I'm not trying to knock the Royal Rumble. I watched a Royal Rumble match this past weekend. But when was the last time we saw a really good tournament? I mean, let's face it, it's been a while. But the G1 always delivers.
Oh, it does. I was thinking, like, good tournaments. I'm like, we just covered the Deadly Game. Oh, that wasn't that good.
We covered games. I mean, we got the Dusty Classics, which happen less frequently than often, which is sad.
They're every year, but they just don't get all the coverage.
Yeah, no, that's true. Other than that, yeah, it's been kind of dead for tournaments. We need to change that. We need to change that. Bring more tournaments.
King of the Ring, let's go. Bring it back.
Yes. That I'm 100% okay with.
Oh, yes. And I was just going to mention the Intercontinental Championship match between Ibushi and Naito. It was phenomenal. I mean, just watch it. if that's one thing from the show you want to watch, it's that. Jericho and Okada was all right, but Jericho was, I don't know if he was a little off or if that was just me. But, you know, from what I watched from Dominion, it was a phenomenal show, and I wish I could do a better job of covering it, but, you know, night shift brain, I'm tired.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And that was kind of the thing I was doing with when I was on night shift, was that I always had very little time to get a chance to do those kind of deals and watch those shows. Even now, I'm working 2 jobs, and I still feel like I barely have that much time to actually get a chance to appreciate some wrestling. But that's why, you know, I appreciate whatever wrestling that I can find, whatever gems are around for wrestling that they provide. But again, like I said, for this first episode, it's just us having fun. We're talking about wrestling. We're also talking about, you know, like fans' experiences. And, geez, we could go through like a whole entire podcast about, you know, experiences with wrestlers and stuff like that. And I think that people would be very entertained to hear some of the stuff that we've been through. Because I think we've mentioned a couple times wrestlers that we've interacted with and talked to.
I've had a few. Like last year, I met Big Show, Trish and Lita, and Ric Flair, but they were just brief photo op meetings, so I can't really speak to much of those. But yeah, Brutus Beefcake. I think my one friend was just like, "How's Hogan?" He's like, I don't talk to him anymore."
Gee, I wonder why.
Well, no, we're not getting into that. And there's more, like Jason Sensation, Gilbert. These guys were outrageous, and the genius of glory and renown.
Yes.
So, yeah, that'll be stories for another day.
Definitely. So obviously, one thing that we always did is we always talked about pay-per-views, and what we've kind of really noticed a lot lately with some of these events is that their pay-per-view names are just either getting more generic, they're getting dumbed down, they're just not as interesting. It seems like the only good pay-per-view names nowadays are literally just NXT TakeOver, enter what city they're in at the end. Whether it's the second time of death or Arrival. Oh gosh, NXT Arrival. Oh my god, that was awesome.
Our Evolution.
That's right.
They had a few like weird named ones before they just started doing Brooklyn or San Antonio or like England. I know there was Arrival and Our Evolution. That might be it. We have to get our resident NXT experts on here. Hey, Giacobi, where you at, man?
Right. Big Dick Nick. We need you back, buddy.
Big shout-outs.
Oh, of course. Definitely major shout-outs to any NXT fans, especially Nick, especially MJ, especially Phil. Who got next? Cast. definitely major shout-outs to you guys. So we thought it might be kind of cool to just list off some of our favorite names of shows or, big events that we kind of enjoyed growing up. Honestly, the first one that came to mind that I really enjoyed growing up was Armageddon. Usually it was like the last show at the end of the year for WWE, and it was kind of cool because it was always one of those shows where it did showcase, hey, we're ending on this note, but also you should tune in to what happens next year because you guys are not going to want to miss this. They always made it so interesting, but now it always ends with, either Night of Champions, TLC, whatever they usually have. It just always felt like nothing really eventful. I mean,
the end is here.
That was another thing I always loved, was the theme song for that show. It was always awesome to hear that, especially when you had a really highly anticipated matchup. The one that comes to mind was the four-way match between JBL, Booker T, Undertaker, Eddie Guerrero. Those guys, they all built that up so well where it's like, oh, JBL is probably not going to walk away with the championship. And it was one of those situations where it's like, he might not, because literally Taker, Eddie, and Booker want to kill this man. So
who does?
It's a good chance that they do it. Oh, jeez. But yeah, Armageddon just fantastically always ended the year on such a high note, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of Armageddon, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a couple of matches here. Of course, that was on my list, too. I've loved Armageddon, but the 6-person Hell in the Cell match from 2000.
Armageddon Hell in the Cell match. That's the way I remember it.
Like Undertaker, Kurt Angle, the new WWE champion. You're going to defend it against Steve Austin, The Rock, Undertaker, Rikishi, and my goodness, who is the other one?
I think he's the guy with the shovel.
The game. How could I forget? So it wasn't Kane and Chris Jericho because they had a last man standing match.
Yeah, that's right.
That started over a cup of coffee. You think this simple coffee?
This is so... Oh my god. Wrestling is stupid.
I might just go back and, steal Kevin Mahan's gimmick and visit the Attitude Era just to kind of get the smudges off the rose-colored glasses there. Hey, that's an idea for my show going on.
Nice.
Yeah, Armageddon's up there. Then there was a ladder. It was a 4-team ladder match. I think it was 2006.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
It was London. It was If you remember this, you know where I'm going. But London and Kedrick, who was a low-key favorite tag team of mine at that time, Eminem, Regal, and Dave Taylor for some reason, and the Hardy Boys. And, of course, we know that's the infamous match where Joey Mercury's nose exploded.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. And honestly, you've seen him nowadays. It doesn't even look like he, had the injury. Maybe if you get closer, you'll probably see, a scar on his nose. But, yeah, from the way that, he looks now, it doesn't even look like he even suffered anything from that, from that matchup.
Oh, not at all. No. But if I can go on to a couple of a name on my list, this one was rather recent, and I just thought it was so effing funny. But goodness gracious, great balls of fire! That
event does not deserve to be as good as it was. It was a stupid name to begin with, and yet it had the best matches of the year.
It had a great match. I'm corny. I like fart jokes. I like those kind of jokes. But it's like. And you're referencing a friggin' song from the 50s, And let us forget about the phallic logo for that event. But I just thought that was just so funny, and I like ones that either have puns or have spelling mistakes. And I think of just about every ECW event that spelled something with the letter Z instead of S at the end, like Anarchy Rules. Actually, anything from ECW.
Yeah. I think I know. Yeah, the ECW had some really interesting names, but they also just basically were just like, we're just going to have fun with these names, Living Dangerously was another one that I remember because of Rob Van Dam and Jerry Lynn. Oh my God. Watch these two literally try to kill each other for a title, as they should.
TV title.
The TV title. It's a secondary title. It's their secondary championship, and literally, it's like the ECW World Title contenders are watching this, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, we're not going to be able to touch this. There's no way this is going to happen. I actually loved the name of Battlegrounds when they did the event right. Two matches that come to mind when I think of Battleground are Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Oh my god, that matchup was amazing. And it was supposed to be the last time, but that lasted about a whole 2 months, to be fair, which, yeah. Yeah, let's not talk about that matchup. But the other matchup there was, of course, the first time the Shield had their triple threat match. Dean Ambrose walking in as the champion, being challenged by Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, who, Roman, he was just coming back from a suspension because he was being a naughty man. So, a lot of people are thinking, well...
That's around the time the hate started for some fans, I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that was where they just really were like, no, we're done with that. And then, oh, that's right, and then the year following, he beat The Undertaker, and we got that great moment where he just goes in the ring, lets it soak in for like 5 to 10 minutes before saying, "This is my yard now."
I hear that on so many podcast intros. I think Ant had it in his.
Oh yeah.
And it's like you cut it off right before like the whole thing was booing, and then like, "This is my cut it off right before that. Backlash.
Oh, back when Backlash was amazing. Oh, geez.
I've watched so many of them. I wanted to review these, but that's at the end of April. I fell very ill and I couldn't talk, and then that was also the time I was put on nights. So my Backlash review, which I actually wrote, is just might get tossed by the wayside. So I've watched all the old school Backlashes, like 2000. Oh no, wait, 2000 I think has to be a favorite because there was some kind of hardcore gimmick match where I think Matt Hardy won the title on a fluke and then came in, and you had Perry Saturn, Crash Holly, like probably Mean Street Posse, and Crash Holly, the Houdini of hardcore himself, manages to sneak out with the title. Personal favorite from the Attitude Era. OSW, come on, he's a boy. Adopt him already. And I just love that they had that swinging blade entrance. Like, if you've ever played, everyone played No Mercy for the N64. Everyone did. And that was my favorite arena to unlock and wrestle in, just because of the swinging blades. And then we had in 2001 the two-man power trip with, what was it? Triple H and Steve Austin against Undertaker and Kane. Winner take all titles on the line.
Mm-hmm.
And a hardcore match, which kind of goes under the radar, but Raven and Rhino for the hardcore title from Backlash. My God, like the goring the shopping cart, using the kitchen sink, everything. Like, my goodness. And who could forget, actually I did forget, that, hey, you dealing with the X Factor.
Oh, jeez Louise.
Opened that card. 1999, well, we know that was, Backlash 99, which, I don't know, we were going to do that, but we couldn't. But
right, yeah.
That was unfortunately the last pay-per-view match that Owen Hart had. We had...
Well, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, I may have accidentally ended the call with Fretz. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back in just a minute. Hi, I'm NateFNGreat. You know what's really fun, you guys, is just spending some time creating wrestling moments, whether it's being in the crowd, cutting promos, or just really kind of beating each other up with a chair or a trash can. Well, let's just say that there's a safer way to doing that without using an actual chair or a trash can. Go over to Great Minds Revolution Incorporated. My buddy Kurt has actually created a very safe and fun way to be a wrestling fan without the necessary lawsuits of basically beating each other up with real stuff. He has an inflatable chair that is really fun to just whack around, and it could also double as a little floaty for a pool. He also has the inflatable trash can, which you guys is really awesome because let's say maybe you don't want to use it for wrestling matches. You could use it at your barbecue, your next big tailgate party, whatever you could think of. Great Minds Revolution Inc. They do a great job on making wrestling fun again. Proud friends of the Game Changer podcast. Hey, I'm NateFNGreat, and I need to learn how to push a right button next time. So we're back here with the Game Changer podcast, hashtag Pro Talk Wrestling, here with Mr. Fretz. Mr. Fretz, I want to go on the record to say I apologize for accidentally hanging up on you. People like to call me during the show. Why? I don't know.
That's why I'm using this on my laptop and my phone's on mute.
Yeah, man. All right, so we were talking about pay-per-view names, and I think we were still talking about Backlash. I think you were talking about Backlash 99, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, I think where I left off, it was how Backlash, at least in 99, was kind of like what WrestleMania 15 should have been. Because WrestleMania 15, it stank. Straight up, it stank. Mm-hmm. And it's something I've always liked to think about rebooking. Like, I always like rebooking events, fantasy booking. But yeah, Backlash 99, we had a Boiler Room Brawl, I just remembered was in that. One of only, like, a handful, like maybe 4 ever in the WWE. Of course, we had Austin and The Rock. And then in 2000, coincidentally, because Austin was out with his neck injury, he came out and kind of helped The Rock beat Triple H for the title, which should have happened at WrestleMania 2000, but actually, I think Mick Foley should have won the WWE title at WrestleMania 2000, and then immediately vacated, and then you have Deadly Game 2 at Backlash 2000.
Oh, dude, that would have been awesome. I think people would have been totally down for that. The finalists could have been, Triple H and The Rock, and then just have The Rock win. But I think
with Stone Cold coming out would have been awesome too.
That would have been awesome. For 99, oh yeah, 99 was the year of WrestleMania. I mean, we can't forget the fact that it ended on just a really good cliffhanger. I mean, where to, Stephanie?
Oh right, I forgot that's how Backlash ended. And then we had that whole that dark wedding with Stephanie hanging on the crucifix and Austin hanging on the crucifix, which was the setup to their match at a. Well, the name of this event is on here because I like the concept of the name of Over the Edge, but unfortunately because of that, it kind of. It's kind of left in the past for a reason, that pay-per-view name. Right. But I thought the name was cool. I'll give it that. And here's one. I have one that was actually the first pay-per-view I ever watched. Halloween Havoc.
Ooh, man.
But it was 98.
I was about to say, I think there's one exception where it's like, that was bad. That was a bad one. That was bad.
Hogan Warrior. And then the DDP Goldberg that got cut from pay-per-view.
Man. Yeah, that's bad.
The undercard was alright. We had, I think it was like Chris Jericho and was going for the cruiserweight. It was either Chris Jericho or Disco Inferno were going for the cruiserweight title. We had a Sting versus Bret Hart, and I think there was something with the Outsiders, or Kevin Nash was involved in there. Well, because of course Kevin Nash has to be involved. I forget the rest of the undercard, but I know the undercard was really good. Like Sting and Bret Hart was a great match. Sharpshooter versus Scorpion Deathlock, right?
Right. Was it 97 the one that had like the match of the year candidate, which was Guerrero versus Mysterio for the Cruiserweight title?
I believe it was 97, yeah.
I mean, my God. You guys want to see an instant classic between two great Cruiserweights, you check out that matchup because holy cow, was that beautiful. I will say this before we kind of move on from this, is that a lot of the shows that happened in Impact Wrestling, well, I remember it more as TNA, I don't think there was ever like a show where it was like, oh God, we have this stupid name or this stupid name. All the names were actually pretty good. Yes, it had some issues. I mean, people already know a certain show by the name of Victory Road that featured a certain matchup between an icon and an enigma that featured one of them being drugged and the other one basically just saying, okay, well, I'm just going to literally just beat you and just hold you down as hard as I can to make sure that you can't kick out. That was brutal. And I honestly, somebody was actually asking, and I'll ask you this, Mr. Fretz, because I think this is also in our chat deal. They were asking which matchup was probably worse, Taker and Goldberg or Hardy and Sting?
Hardy and Sting. I mean, it wasn't a match. It was just the score. It was Jeff Hardy was wasted, and it was Scorpion Death Drop and boom. Taker. I haven't watched Taker and Goldberg because when the show was starting, I was at Comic-Con when the show was going on. I wasn't watching it, but I went on Twitter just to see what people were talking about, and the jackhammer became a brainbuster because I don't know, Goldberg's arm gave out or something, but that's what you get when you have two 50-year-old dudes flopping around in the ring. I love Goldberg and Taker. They're top 10. Like Taker's top 3. But,
it was just, had we had that matchup earlier in their careers, maybe it would have been good. But
maybe during the invasion.
Oh, that would have been really amazing. Honestly, my God. Just imagine the possibilities. Imagine the fact that this could have been the marquee matchup. I mean, oh gosh. Just, WWE, why must you ruin good things even more now? But what I was saying before, like I said, TNA, they have their names of events. They have, Genesis, Final Resolutions, Against All Odds, Destination X, Slammiversary, Bound for Glory. All these events, I never really had one of those where it's like, oh, this is a stupid name. I just remember watching, ooh, okay, this got a nice name to it. Let's see what happens. Like, oh, nice. Victory Road, the Match of Champions. Nice. Hard Justice, that's right.
Justice,
yes. Before it went into Hardcore Justice, which was, hey, every match is under Extreme Rules. Like, well, I mean, it's better than One Night Stand or Extreme Rules. At least they tried something original.
I love Lockdown.
Lockdown, oh my gosh. Lockdown, yes!
I tried to watch as many Lockdowns as I could. At my parents' house, when I was living there, we got a satellite dish, and I think, it had to be 0506, and I would try to order, like, a couple of papers. Like, I ordered, like, WrestleMania 23, I think it was, or 22, whatever. No, I watched, it was 22, it was the one with Mick Foley and Edge. Like, I remember watching that live in my house. I watched, like, there was like one Lockdown, a couple of Bound for Glories, and I would just give them the money, right? So back when you could actually watch pay-per-views and pay for them.
Right, exactly. I'll tell you this: I paid for Double or Nothing, and honestly, it was the best money I could have ever spent. But then again, it's AEW, so speaking of which, transition into that. So I made the announcement on my one-off show yesterday, and I will make the announcement here, is that I'm going to be at AEW All Out in Chicago. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic show. Like we mentioned before, we got Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega already announced. We got the AEW Championship announced, where we have Hangman Page taking on Chris Jericho. I'm looking forward to this event. They got StarCast 3 going on again. That's going to be a fun show. That is going to be a fun event.
Super jealous, bro.
I think a lot of people are. And hey, for those of you that are also curious, I'm not going alone because our good buddy Dusty Dave, he and I are going to be kind of tagging along. It's going to be absolutely awesome. It's going to be glorious. It's going to be enter any wrestler's catchphrase here, please. It's going to be woo. So guys, hopefully you have enjoyed this edition of the Game Changer Podcast with myself, NateFNGreat, and Mr. Fretz. Before we go any further, Mr. Fretz, I believe that you mentioned you wanted to plug something really nice into this show. And honestly, guys, yes. it's something I think that I would honestly say is bigger than my announcement of going to AEW. Mr. Fretz, please, by all means, the floor is yours.
Okay, so on August 11th, the morning of WWE SummerSlam, and no, I'm not going, and I'm not going to NXT Toronto. Sorry, Slack. Sorry, Danny. Sorry, Nikki, and everyone else who are probably going. But that morning, I'm going to be participating in a 8K beach walk/run where I live in Sauble. And the money, I'm going to be raising money for this. And the money goes towards the Toronto Sick Kids Hospital Bleeding Disorders Fund, which will help kids like my niece Abby, who has a rare bleeding disorder called, I think it's Glanzmann thrombasthenia, something like that. Long story short, it's things like, prolonged bleeding, clotting issues, easily bruising, and it's something that, she's going to have to live with and be on medication for, and I think especially when she goes through puberty as well, right? So we're going to be raising money to go towards cures for bleeding disorders at sick kids. This is the second, third, I believe this is the third year that our town has rallied around our family to raise money for this, because the Sandfest weekend in Sauble Beach it's been here as long as, well, I've been here for 7 years. It's been here like 10 times as long, right? But yeah, recently they've started getting involved with Sick Kids Hospital. So if you go to my pinned tweet on Twitter at the legendary JF, you'll find a link to donate. If you could do that, that'd be awesome. I want to get at least a couple $100. That's just kind of a little bit of a stretch goal. And Abby, she just turned 3. She's a happy, healthy, awesome little girl. So there are, but then there are many other people in the world who unfortunately have the burden of a bleeding disorder. So if you can help them out, help us out, that would be amazing. And that was my plug. Other than me on Twitter at the legendary JF. I have a show that's not involved with Wrestle Addict Radio, Fretzlemania, Fretzle Mania, on all the podcast platforms, but that I won't be doing too much of that, as I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on the Game Changer with Wrestle Addict Radio, McFoley Pop.
Guys, definitely go check him out on his Twitter feed and find out how you can make a difference in somebody's life right there. Again, you guys, plugging Wrestle Addict Radio. These guys are just absolutely fantastic. These guys and one Queen Bee, I'll say that right now, so that way we're not singling, so we're not saying like, oh, it's just a sausage fest. No. We got a Queen Bee, and literally she is one of the best things that has ever happened to the world of wrestling Twitter as well as wrestling podcast. So definitely check her out. Let's plug these guys again. We got Kings of the Rings podcast. We have the Gift of Podcast. We have the Fourth Wall WrestleCast. We also have the incredible Nacho Mama Soap Opera podcast, and of course the Game Changer podcast, you guys. So, want to kind of end this on an interesting note, because one thing that I always like to do is I like to incorporate pop culture references and stuff like that into the Game Changer podcast, and this was something that I addressed on wrestling. I think I addressed this on Facebook as well as on Twitter, other than the fact that I made the joke that, hey, I'm going to be the Scott Lang or the Peter Parker of the Wrestle Addict Radio. And, of course, Ant replies by saying, I'm Tony Stark. So literally it's like, okay, so literally yeah. How do you think I feel? I
don't feel so good.
Oh, dude, man. It's a year out, and it's still too soon. So I wanted to kind of compare this, because I was thinking about professional wrestling, especially with WWE and with AEW. And I kind of want to bring this to you, Fretz. I want to kind of see if, you can relate to this, or maybe if you can kind of see where I'm coming from. But basically how I wanted to put it was like this. So professional wrestling, I compare it to the company known as Disney. Let's face it, they're going to basically own every single bit of entertainment. So professional wrestling equals Disney. Basically, math there. So obviously, with Disney, they have different brands. They also have different products that they display. Professional wrestling, same thing. You got, of course, AEW, you got Lucha Underground, you got WCW, ECW, etc., and so forth. So I compared WWE to the Star Wars franchise. And before people go complaining, let me explain. They started off really good, and, so did with A New Hope. It was a great beginning. Everything was doing good. Everything was great. Then we get into, the Attitude Era, Empire Strikes Back, and that's where they're kind of reaching their peak. This is where we're getting the excitement. We're getting everything that they want. Yes, there's cheesy moments in there, but it's still one of those things where a lot of people remember it, and they're just completely satisfied. They enjoy a lot of it. Then we go into, I guess we could call it the Ruthless Aggression Era, which I compare that as the Return of the Jedi, which a lot of people are saying, there's still some cool stuff here, but now you're starting to see some like the hokiness, some of the weird cringy stuff here and there, and even points where people are just shaking their heads. I mean, how do I want to describe this? What I'm trying to think who I actually say is like the Ewoks. Are they kind of like the reject? Yes, they're the rejected wrestlers that a lot of people are just like, we had such hope for them, but now they're just they're sucky. It's like, yeah, I would definitely throw the tag team of Gemini and the Dicks into the Ewok category. That being said, moving on. Obviously, then we go into the prequels. You have really bad movies, of course, in, Phantom Menace, as well as Attack of the Clones. I do believe that that's kind of where we had that long streak of just really bad deals. You can definitely probably say that it's kind of like the John Cena era where he was just main eventing, he was taking over everything, going crazy. People are just like, oh, this is getting annoying, this is too repetitive, this is stupid. Then we get into Revenge of the Sith, I should say. And I would compare that movie to the CM Punk era. Yes, it was only for about a couple years, but with the CM Punk era, you got some really good things out of this. You got some absolutely fantastic moments, the pipe bomb, you got him main eventing and headlining shows, you have him winning the WWE title, we have his heel deal. It's great stuff. We still get a little bit of like a kind of treading water deal in there. Then we hit the premiere of NXT. Goes into Force Awakens, because now we got something new, we got something that's fresh, we got something that's great, everything is awesome, everything is cool, it's just fantastic right now. And the point I'm getting at right now is that we're in the phase of the latest movie that came out, that being The Last Jedi. And that, of course, a lot of people have been very salty about it, they've hated it, there's some people that loved it. And there's still some diehard, Star Wars fans that have that cling of hope that maybe, just maybe, they might have something still left in them. And now it's going to all, come to a head when we have, the Rise of Skywalker in December. There's still some faithful that are like, hey, this might be a good thing. This might be something that helps, get the brand back on their feet again. And same thing with WWE. We're trying to find that point where it's like, hey, they're going to find a way to, get back on their feet. They're going to do great. But then there's a lot of people that have already given up on it. They've seen the trailer. They've seen the product. They're just like, yep, we're done. We're good. With AEW, I compare them to Marvel. And honestly, I can very confidently say that All In was the Avengers movie. Double or Nothing was Age of Ultron. Now, we're getting into the next phase, which would be Infinity War, which would be All Out. So that.
What about Civil War?
Oh, maybe that's the next one. Maybe Civil War is All Out. That one I actually did not even consider, because that's actually a good point. But yeah, you kind of get where I'm getting at. It's like, Star Wars has been here a long time. People are kind of getting sick of it, and they want something new. Marvel is giving them something new and something that they kind of like. Yes, they have dozens upon dozens of movies, but there's always something different. There's always something great that they want to enjoy. With Star Wars, they're kind of sticking to the status quo, unfortunately. And they're also trying to just change these different deals. Like, of course, Phantom Menace, they introduced midichlorians, which, of course, people are just like, oh, that's stupid. That's horrible. How could I compare that with WWE? Maybe that's the John Cena. No, that's not. That's too mean for John Cena. Maybe Randy Orton. No. Maybe stupid creative idea. Yeah, stupid creativity. That's a midichlorian deal.
Guest hosts of Raw.
You know what? I'm going to go with that. Yeah, I think to get the midichlorian factor brought in is basically represented by the guest hosting of Raws. It just was unnecessary. It was unneeded. Didn't need to be there. We just lived with what we got. We were fine with that. But when they brought this new factor in, people started hating it. So that is my long rant about this, and that is kind of like my pop culture wrestling tie-in here. So I want to ask you, Mr. Fretz, what are your thoughts on what I've had to say? Are there things that you agree with, and are there some things that you disagree with?
I'm about to get thrown off this network, Nate.
Oh boy.
I haven't seen any Star Wars past Jedi.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. But I do kind of understand when you were going through the Star Wars, I'm like, what the hell is the Manchurian Candidate? Oh wait, that's a movie. Once you brought the Marvel tie-in and the Avengers, I'm like, there it is. And how the Vince McMahon and McMahon is the Empire, McMahon, Darth Vader. That might be a bit strong, but I kind of got where you were going at with how All Elite is kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like a Big Bang, if you will, in wrestling. Like we've always had, other options in wrestling, whether it was WCW and Crockett, ECW, regional shows, depending on where you're from, like USWA, like Stampede Wrestling, or say if you're Ring of Honor, and this even goes to Ring of Honor and Impact. Like we've always had second options. It's just that these weren't as readily available and as mainstream as, say, Turner was. And how you got once AEW and Avengers won, it clicked. I got it, and I would have to agree with that. But it's also, I think it was King Ricky was saying, it's also too soon. So I don't want to count the chickens before they hatch, however that phrase goes. But I am optimistic because I want to be, positive. I want to be optimistic. Like in the past, as I've said, if you've listened to my most recent podcast, when I gave about a 10-minute long shout out to Ant, I talked about my ventures through wrestling forum sites, including one that has been defunct for 10 years, and how I used to be kind of an asshole. And so I want to be a positive influence as a wrestling fan. Although if you follow me during Toronto Maple Leafs games, I am less than savory because I'm a long-suffering fan of Toronto. Shut up. I know people hate tweet me. Go for it. But I don't, and this is unrelated, but there is no WWE versus AEW. It's wrestling. We love wrestling.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't think we're probably going to get to the point where, it was like WCW versus WWF yay long years ago. And honestly, that's fine. I think AEW is there to, take some cheap shots at WWE, but they're more focused, obviously, on creating their own brand. They're focused on creating their own product, which absolutely I respect that. They're more focused on giving back to what the fans want. And that's what they've been saying for the last year, is that we want to give back to the fans. We want to give you guys something that you'll remember by, something that you will enjoy. And they're doing a fantastic job of it. So for those that think that, AEW is going to tank or stuff like that, you never know. We won't know until the whole dealership deal takes place, which, actually, we'll end on this note. It's funny because there's a report that was going around that seemed like TNT, they wanted to cancel their deal with AEW in a way to basically just go with WWE's program. They want to bring in Main Event, which, hey, remember when this was a show? Remember when this was a thing? I sure as hell didn't. Apparently so. They want to just do that and have in favor of the 24/7 championship as their main title, which I can understand that, but I don't think it's going to be one of those things where it's like, this is going to profit a lot of money. It's like, no, people are going to get annoyed by that by at least week 2, because creative doesn't have too many genius things. you want to bring in something that's different. You want to bring in something that's new, that's unique. So I think that, if TNN, TNT, whoever they're signing with, should definitely take a chance on AEW and watch these guys grow and watch these guys become a great show. Let them become a brand of themselves. And then maybe after a year, if you feel like, oh, well, this is not working out, then you can terminate it. That's easy. Just give them a year. If they don't press you within the year, then yeah, you could say, hey, we're done with this. Just honor them for a year and go from there. That's the way I see it. But so far, we've had 2 successful shows with AEW. We got another show in Chicago coming up that's going to be just as successful. It's going to be good. So I don't see any reason for them to go in favor of this knockoff one deal WWE deal and for a ugly championship when they can be one of the ones that said, hey, we gave these guys their chance. We're the ones that started it. I mean, that's what businesses want. They want to be the ones that say, hey, we introduced that. Hey, we did this.
Indeed, man. I'm excited to see where this goes. So, and we have Fyter Fest at the end of the month, which I believe is going to be free on Bleacher Report.
Ooh, that's going to be awesome. So, guys, be sure to tune in to that, and be sure to also check us out on our Facebook fan pages, on our Twitters, everything like that. You can check it out in the description. If you're listening to this on the Spreaker.com app, you definitely want to be here. This is indeed the proud home of the Game Changer podcast, as well as many other great podcasts. Also available on iHeartRadio, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Google Podcasts, and will also be available every Thursday on Anchor. You guys will definitely want to listen into that. Proud friends of Wrestle Addict Radio. Thank you guys so much. Mr. Fretz, any parting words to the fans?
Parting words to the fans. See you next time.
Thank you guys so much. This has been the Game Changer Podcast with NateFNGreat, Mr. Fretz. We're 2 pros. We talk about wrestling. Be sure to use the hashtag ProTalkWrestling. We're going to make that into a shirt, I guarantee it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are indeed the Game Changer, and we're here to do one thing, and that is shock the system.
Shock the system.